My name is Raymond Carter. I'm 66 years old, and yesterday my son-in-law stood in front of me and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Get out of this house right now, my own daughter, my own flesh and blood, the girl I raised with these two hands." She stepped behind him, wouldn't even look me in the eye and said, "You're on your own now, Dad, leave." I didn't argue, I didn't shout back, I didn't beg. What would be the point? I simply nodded. Picked up my old travel bag, the same one I'd carried through 30 years of hard work, and made one quiet phone call. 1 hour later, a black convoy rolled up in front of their perfect suburban house with the manicured lawn and the two-car garage. A man in a dark suit stepped out, professional, commanding, the kind of man who doesn't need to raise his voice to be heard. When my daughter and her husband saw who had come for me, when they recognized that emblem on those vehicles, their jaws dropped. Their faces went white, and suddenly, the man who had screamed at me to get out couldn't find his voice at all. Before I continue, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from, because what I'm about to tell you, it's about family, betrayal, justice, and the moment everything changed. Let me take you back to the story. 24 hours to the night that destroyed everything I owned. I was living in a small apartment on the east side of town, nothing fancy, a one-bedroom place with peeling paint and a radiator that clanked all night. But it was mine, my space, my independence. After my wife left us 17 years ago, just walked out one morning and never looked back, I'd learned to need very little, just enough to get by, just enough to maintain my dignity. That Tuesday night, I'd fallen asleep watching the late news. Some story about the economy, interest rates, things that used to matter more when I had more to lose. I woke up to the smell of smoke. Thick, black, choking smoke that filled my lungs before my brain could even process what was happening. The fire started in the apartment below mine. Faulty wiring, they said later. Ancient building, landlord who didn't give a damn about code violations. The flames traveled fast, faster than you'd think. By the time I grabbed my shoes and stumbled toward the door, I could hear the roar of it beneath my feet. Like some angry beast trying to claw its way up through the floorboards, I got out with one bag. One bag, you understand? 43 years of living, of working, of collecting memories, gone. Photographs of my daughter as a child. The watch my father gave me before he died. My mother's cookbook with her handwriting in the margins. The tie I wore to my daughter's wedding. All of it, ash. I stood on the sidewalk in my pajamas and watched my building burn. Watched the firefighters spray their hoses. Watched my neighbors crying, holding each other. And I felt empty, not angry, not scared, just empty. Like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped everything out. The Red Cross gave me a blanket. A police officer gave me a bottle of water. Someone from the building asked if I had family. Family? Yes, I had family. I had a daughter, one daughter. The person I'd sacrificed everything for. Surely she would help me. Surely blood meant something. I called her at 11:30 that night. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. "Dad," her voice was distant, cautious, like she already knew this wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. "Sarah, honey, there's been a fire in my apartment. It's gone, everything's gone. I need a place to stay, just temporarily, just until I can figure things out." Silence. Long, painful silence. "Dad, it's complicated right now. Mark and we've got a lot going on. Let me talk to him, okay? Let me see what I can do." "Sarah, I have nowhere to go." "I know, Dad, I know. Just give me some time to work this out. I'll call you back." She never called back. I sat on that curb until 3 in the morning waiting for my phone to ring. Waiting for my daughter to tell me it was okay, come over, we'll figure it out together. The way families do, but the call never came. So at dawn, with nowhere else to turn, I took a bus across town. I showed up at their door anyway, because what else was I supposed to do? Sleep in a shelter? Beg strangers? I'd raised this girl. I'd given her everything. Surely that counted for something. I rang the doorbell at 7:15 a.m. in the morning. I know the exact time because I checked my watch 3 times, wondering if it was too early, wondering if I should wait. But where was I supposed to wait? I had no home, no car, just this one bag and the clothes on my back. Sarah opened the door. My daughter, my baby girl, the one I used to carry on my shoulders at the park. The one who used to make me Father's Day cards with crayon drawings that said, "World's Best Dad." Looked at me like I was a stranger. No, worse than a stranger. Like I was a problem she hadn't anticipated and didn't want to deal with. "Dad, what are you doing here? Not, are you okay? Not, come in, let's get you some coffee. Just, what are you doing here?" "I told you last night, honey. The fire, I have nowhere to go. You didn't call me back." "I said I'd call you when I figured something out." "It's been 8 hours, Sarah." She glanced behind her, nervous. I could hear footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Mark was coming. Sarah, who the hell is at the door this early? His voice carried that edge it always had, the tone that said he was used to being obeyed, used to getting his way. He appeared behind her, wearing an expensive robe I'm pretty sure I'd helped pay for, given all the wedding gifts I'd sent them over the years. He looked at me, and I watched his face transform from confusion to annoyance to outright anger in about 3 seconds. Raymond. What are you doing on my doorstep? My doorstep, not our doorstep. Not the family home, my doorstep. I need help, Mark. There was a fire. I lost everything. I just need somewhere to stay for a few days while I… Absolutely not. He cut me off, didn't even let me finish. Absolutely not. Sarah stood there silent, my daughter, the one I'd raised, silent. Mark, please, I'm asking for basic human decency here. I'm family. He laughed, actually laughed. Family. Raymond, let me be clear with you. You showing up here looking like this. He gestured at my rumpled clothes, my smoky bag. Do you have any idea how this looks? We have neighbors. We have a reputation in this community. I work damn hard to build the life we have here, and I'm not going to let some… He paused, searching for the right word. Some charity case embarrass us. Charity case. He called me a charity case. I raised her. My voice was shaking now. I raised her alone. When her mother walked out, I stayed. I worked 2 jobs so she could have dance lessons and summer camp and a car for her 16th birthday. I paid for her college. I paid for your wedding. I gave you this house. You gave us this house? Mark stepped forward, aggressive now. We bought this house, old man. We worked for it. Maybe if you'd managed your money better, you wouldn't be standing here begging now. I looked past him to Sarah. Tell him how I helped you. She looked down, couldn't meet my eyes. Sarah. My voice broke on her name. Dad, you need to understand. Things are different now. I have a family of my own. Responsibilities. Mark's right. We can't just take in everyone who has problems. Everyone who has problems. Like I was some deadbeat stranger, not her father. Not the man who'd sat up all night when she had pneumonia at age 7. Not the man who'd taught her to ride a bike, to drive a car, to believe in herself. Get out. Mark's voice was cold now. Final. Get out of this house right now. He was pointing at the street. Like I was trash he was throwing out. On your own now, Dad. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Leave. I stood there for one more moment, looking at them, my daughter and her husband, standing in the doorway of the house I'd given them as a wedding gift. The house I'd signed over because I'd wanted them to start their marriage with security and hope. I didn't say anything else. What was there to say? I picked up my bag, turned around, and walked away. The door slammed behind me. That sound, that final, decisive slam, it echoed in my chest like a death sentence. I was alone, truly, completely alone. I sat on the curb across from their house. In the heat, the morning sun was already brutal, and I could feel sweat mixing with the tears I was trying so hard not to shed. 66 years old, homeless, rejected by my own child. Is this what it all came to? Is this what all those years of sacrifice meant? I thought about the nights I'd worked as a security guard after my day shift at the factory ended. 10 hours at the plant, then 6 more sitting in a booth watching other people's property. I'd come home at dawn, sleep for 3 hours, then get up to make Sarah breakfast before school. I thought about the times I'd skipped meals so she could have new clothes for picture day. The Christmas I'd worked triple overtime so she could have the bike she wanted, the purple one with the streamers and the basket. I thought about her mother leaving, the note on the kitchen table. I can't do this anymore. I need to find myself, find herself. Like we were the ones who had lost her instead of her abandoning us. Sarah had been 9 years old. 9, she'd cried for weeks, kept asking when Mommy was coming home, and I'd held her every night and promised her that I would never leave, that we were a team, that family meant something. I'd kept that promise. For 17 years I'd kept it, and here I was, on a curb, in the heat, while she sat inside her air-conditioned house with her husband who called me a charity case. I remembered her first day of college, how proud she'd been, how I'd helped her move into her dorm room, met her roommate, embarrassed her by crying a little when I hugged her goodbye. I remembered her graduation. 4 years later, she'd walked across that stage, and when she got her diploma, she'd looked right at me in the audience and mouthed, "Thank you, Dad." I remembered walking her down the aisle at her wedding, how beautiful she'd looked. How she'd squeezed my hand before I gave her away and whispered, "I love you, Dad. Thank you for everything." Where did that girl go? Where did my daughter go? I'd paid for that wedding, every penny of it. The venue, the flowers, the band, the open bar, the honeymoon to Hawaii. I'd emptied my savings account. Didn't matter. She was happy. That was all that mattered. And then, as a wedding gift, I'd done something I thought was generous. I'd signed over the deed to a house, a nice house in a good neighborhood. The kind of house I'd never been able to afford for myself, but I'd inherited it from an uncle who'd passed away, and instead of selling it and keeping the money for my retirement, I'd given it to them, because I wanted my daughter to have security, to never struggle the way I had. I'd sat in that lawyer's office, signed all the papers and felt good about it, felt like I was doing something right for once, being a good father. Now that house, MY house, was the place I'd just been thrown out of. One tear ran down my face, just one, then another, and another, until I was sitting there on that curb, 66 years old, crying like a child. Is this it? Is this how it ends? Then I felt something in my pocket, my phone. Old cracked screen barely holds a charge anymore, but it still worked. I pulled it out, scrolled through my contacts. Most of them were dead numbers now. Old co-workers from jobs I'd left years ago. A few guys from the union, my doctor's office. And then I saw a name I hadn't looked at in years. David Chen. I stared at that name for a long time, remembering, 23 years ago, David had been a young man with a dream and a failing business. He'd started a small logistics company with everything he had, and it was drowning in debt. Banks wouldn't touch him. Investors had pulled out. He was days away from losing everything. I'd met him at a bar where he was drowning his sorrows. We'd talked. He'd told me his story. And something in his voice, in his passion, in his refusal to give up even when everything was falling apart. It reminded me of myself. I'd done something crazy that night. I'd taken what little savings I had, money I'd been setting aside for Sarah's future, and I'd loaned it to him, $15,000. My lawyer thought I was insane. My friends thought I'd been conned, but I believed in him. David had paid me back within 2 years, every penny, with interest, and his company had survived. More than survived. It had grown. Last I'd heard, 5 or 6 years ago, his company had gone national. He'd become successful, very successful, but we'd lost touch. Life gets busy, people drift apart. My finger hovered over his name. Would he even remember me? Would he care? I had nothing left to lose. I pressed the call. The phone rang 4 times. I was about to hang up, convinced this was pointless, when a voice answered. This is David Chen, professional, busy, the voice of a man who had important things to do and no time to waste. David, it's Raymond Carter. Silence, long enough that I thought he'd hung up then. Raymond Carter, my God, it's been, what, 5 years, 6, something like that. Are you? How's Sarah? Is everything? He stopped. I think he heard something in my voice, that break. That exhaustion. Raymond, what's wrong? And just like that, the wall I'd been holding up crumbled. David, I don't even know where to start. There was a fire. My apartment burned down. I lost everything. I went to my daughter for help and she threw me out. Her husband screamed at me to leave. I'm sitting on a curb right now with everything I own in one bag and I don't know what to do. I don't know who else to call. My voice was shaking. I hated how weak I sounded, how desperate. Where are you right now? Give me the address. I told him, the street, the number of Sarah's house. Stay exactly where you are, Raymond. Don't move. I'm sending someone immediately. Do you hear me? Help is coming. You're not alone. David, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you what you did for me 23 years ago. You saved my life, Raymond. You believed in me when nobody else did. You gave me your savings, money you needed for your daughter, and you never asked for anything in return. You paid me back. We're square. Money isn't the point. You saw me as a human being when I was at my lowest. You gave me hope. Now it's my turn. Stay where you are. He hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, not quite believing what had just happened. Part of me expected nothing to come of it. Part of me thought maybe he'd send a taxi voucher or the address of a decent shelter, but I waited. Because what else was I going to do? An hour passed, the longest hour of my life. I watched neighbors come out to water their lawns. A woman jogging past with her dog, a mail truck making its rounds. Normal life happening all around me while mine had fallen apart. Then I heard them. Engines, multiple engines, deep, powerful, the kind of sound that makes you look up. 3 black SUVs, pristine, expensive. They turned onto the street in perfect formation and stopped right in front of me. People on the street stopped what they were doing, stared. The door of the middle SUV opened. A man stepped out. Dark suit, perfect posture, the bearing of someone who'd served in the military. He walked straight toward me. Mr. Raymond Carter? Yes, I'm Michael Torres, head of security for Chen Logistics International. Mr. Chen sent me personally to bring you to him. If you'll come with me, sir, he said, sir. This man in his expensive suit called me sir like I mattered. I stood up, my legs shaky. I don't want to be in any trouble. Mr. Carter, you're no trouble at all. Mr. Chen has made your comfort and safety his top priority. Please. He gestured to the vehicle. Another man had already stepped out and was reaching for my bag, my pathetic little bag with my entire life in it, handling it with the same care you'd give expensive luggage. I was about to get in when I heard a door open behind me. Sarah and Mark had come outside. They were standing on their porch staring at the scene, at the at the professional security team, at me. Mark's face had gone pale. He was staring at the logo on the side of the vehicles. 3 letters CLI, Chen Logistics International. He knew that company. Everyone in the business world knew that company. Multi-billion-dollar enterprise, one of the most successful logistics operations in North America. Sarah's hand was over her mouth. She looked stunned, confused, maybe beginning to understand that she'd made a terrible mistake. Michael opened the door for me. Sir, I looked back at my daughter one last time. She took a step forward, like she wanted to say something. But Mark grabbed her arm, held her back. I got in the vehicle, the door closed, the leather seats were soft, the air conditioning was perfect, quiet classical music played from hidden speakers. As we pulled away, I looked back through the tinted window. Sarah and Mark were still standing there, watching us leave, and I saw on Mark's face something I'd never seen before. The drive took 45 minutes. We left the suburbs behind, moved through the city, and eventually arrived at an area I'd never seen before. Private estates, gates, security checkpoints. We pulled up to a property that looked like something from a magazine. Stone walls, perfectly manicured gardens, a fountain in the circular driveway, the kind of place that makes you feel small just looking at it. Michael led me inside. Marble floors, high ceilings. Art on the walls that probably cost more than I'd earned in my entire life. And there he was, David Chen. Older now, aren't we all, but still with that same energy, that intensity. He was wearing casual clothes, jeans, and a button-down shirt, like this was just a normal Tuesday afternoon and not a rescue operation. He saw me and his face did something I didn't expect. It crumpled, just for a second. Pain, genuine pain at seeing me in this state. Raymond. He crossed the room in 4 strides and grabbed me in a hug. A real hug, the kind that says, I've got you. My God, what have they done to you? I couldn't speak. If I opened my mouth, I'd fall apart completely. Come sit, are you hungry? When did you last eat? I couldn't remember, honestly couldn't remember. He called out something in Mandarin. A woman appeared, his assistant, I later learned, and suddenly there was food being brought in. Real food, soup, bread, fruit, coffee. First. Then we'll talk. I ate. I didn't realize how hungry I was until I started. David sat across from me, watching with this concerned expression like a parent watching a sick child. When I'd finished, he leaned forward. Tell me everything, from the beginning. So I did. The fire, the call to Sarah, the rejection, standing on the curb, all of it. His expression darkened as I spoke. When I got to the part about Mark calling me a charity case, about Sarah standing silent while her husband threw me out, his hands clenched into fists. That house, he said quietly, the one they're living in, you gave them that house, wedding gift, 5 years ago. I inherited it from my uncle and instead of selling it, I signed it over to them, thought I was doing something good. Do you have the paperwork, the deed transfer documents? Don't have anything, David. Everything burned. But the lawyer who handled it, Martinez and Associates, they should have copies. David pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke to someone named Rebecca. I need you to contact Martinez and Associates law firm immediately. We're looking for deed transfer documents from 5 years ago, named Sarah and Mark Brennan, transferor Raymond Carter. I want copies of everything in my hands by tonight. He hung up, looked at me. My personal attorney, she's the best. David, I don't want to cause problems. I just need a place to stay for a few days while I figure things out. Raymond, stop, just stop. His voice was firm but kind. You're not causing problems. You're letting me finally repay a debt I've owed for 23 years. You're staying here, in this house, for as long as you need, and we're going to fix this. There's nothing to fix. My daughter made her choice. Maybe, but I want to see those documents. Something's bothering me. A woman appeared, David's wife, Linda. She was warm. Immediately taking me under her wing, showing me to a guest suite that was bigger than my entire apartment had been. There were fresh clothes laid out on the bed, toiletries in the bathroom, everything I needed. Take a shower, rest, you're safe now, she said. I stood in that shower for 30 minutes, letting the hot water wash away more than just the smoke and dirt, washing away the humiliation, the pain, the exhaustion. When I came out, wearing the fresh clothes, I felt almost human again. That evening, Rebecca arrived, David's attorney, sharp woman in her 50s with a briefcase full of documents. Mr. Carter, I've retrieved all the paperwork from your deed transfer. May I review the structure with you? Structure? She opened a folder. Your uncles will stipulated that the property be held in a living trust with you as the primary beneficiary. When you transferred the property to your daughter and son-in-law, the trust structure remained in place. Did you understand that at the time? The lawyer mentioned a trust, said it was for tax purposes. I didn't really understand all the legal language. I just wanted to give them the house. Rebecca smiled. Mr. Carter, you didn't give them the house. Not entirely. According to these documents, which you signed and they signed, the property is held in a trust where you maintain 51% beneficial ownership. They have 49%. Trust documents clearly state that any major decisions regarding the property, including sale, transfer, or use as collateral, require your written consent. I stared at her. What does that mean? It means, sir, that you still own the majority stake in that house. They can live in it. They can maintain it. But they cannot sell it, mortgage it, or leverage it in any way without your explicit permission. You effectively still control that property. David leaned back in his chair. He was smiling now. Actually smiling. Did they ever read what they signed? Most people don't, Rebecca said. They see wedding gift and house transfer and they sign. But the attorney who structured this, he protected you, Mr. Carter. Whether intentionally or not, he made sure you couldn't be completely cut out. So what happens now? Now, David said, we send them a little reminder about what they actually agreed to. Rebecca drafted a formal letter. It was beautiful in its simplicity. No threats, no anger, just facts. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, this letter serves as formal notice regarding the property located at address, which you currently occupy. As per the trust agreement dated on the 21st August 1973 and signed by all parties, the property remains under the beneficial ownership structure wherein Raymond Carter retains 51% interest and decision-making authority. Recent events have necessitated a review of the current arrangement. Please be advised that any modifications to the property, any attempts to sell or leverage the property, or any unauthorized uses of the property will be considered breach of trust and will be addressed through appropriate legal channels. Additionally, we request that you provide immediate access for inspection and appraisal purposes. All future correspondence regarding this property should be directed to this office. Sincerely, Rebecca Chen, Attorney at Law on behalf of Raymond Carter. Rebecca sent it via courier, with a copy via email, and another copy via certified mail. No way they could claim they didn't receive it. How long until we hear from them? I asked. Oh, I'd say about an hour after they opened that envelope, David said. He was wrong. It took 45 minutes. My phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. What the hell is this? Mark's voice was screaming, absolutely screaming. Who do you think you are? You can't do this. I didn't raise my voice. I'd learned something in the last 24 hours. Quiet power is more effective than loud anger. I can do this, Mark, because I own 51% of that house. It's in the trust documents you signed. Perhaps you should have read them. This is fraud. This is coercion. You manipulated us. I gave you a house as a wedding gift. The lawyer structured it to protect all parties. That's not fraud, Mark. That's good legal practice. And you signed it. Your signature is right there on the documents. We'll fight this. We'll get our own lawyer. You'll lose. My voice was still calm, still quiet. And you'll waste money on legal fees trying to fight something you agreed to. Now I suggest you and Sarah have a conversation about respect and family, because what you did to me yesterday, that's not something I'll forget easily. You old man, you think you can just... I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I was smiling, actually smiling. David handed me a glass of bourbon. How do you feel? Honestly, I feel like I just got a piece of myself back. We clinked glasses. Over the next 2 days, Mark tried everything. He called repeatedly. I didn't answer. He sent emails to Rebecca threatening lawsuits. She responded with copies of his signatures, filing records, and a timeline of events that made it very clear he had no legal ground to stand on. He even tried showing up at David's estate. Security turned him away at the gate. Finally, Sarah called. Not Mark, Sarah. Dad, please, can we talk? Talk. Not on the phone, in person, please. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. But before that meeting happened, David did something I didn't ask for. Raymond, I want you to know something. What your son-in-law did to you, the way he spoke to you, it bothered me a lot, so I had my people look into him. David, you didn't have to. I know I didn't have to. I wanted to. And Raymond, you need to see this. He handed me a folder, a thick folder. Inside was a detailed financial investigation of Mark Brennan, and it was devastating. Hidden debts. Credit cards maxed out, personal loans from predatory lenders, but the worst part, gambling. Mark had a serious gambling problem, poker games, sports betting, online casinos. He'd lost over $200,000 in the last 3 years, and he'd been hiding all of it from Sarah. There's more, David said quietly. Look at page 7. I flipped to page 7 and felt my blood run cold. 6 months ago, Mark had attempted to take out a home equity line of credit on the house. MY House, the house I'd given them. He'd forged Sarah's signature on the application. The bank had denied it because of the trust structure. They couldn't find clear title. But he'd tried. He'd actually tried to use my property to cover his gambling debts. He was going to steal from you, David said. From his own wife, from your daughter. He was going to drain equity from that house to pay off loan sharks and bookies. I felt sick, not because of what Mark had done to me, but because of what he'd been doing to Sarah, my daughter. She had no idea who she'd married. What do I do with this? That's up to you, Raymond. We have enough evidence here to press criminal charges, fraud, forgery. The district attorney would have a field day with this. Mark Brennan could go to prison. I looked at those documents for a long time. Part of me, the angry, hurt part, wanted to see him punished, wanted to see him face consequences for his actions. But another part of me thought about Sarah, about my daughter, about what this would do to her life. I want to show this to Sarah first, before anyone else sees it. She deserves to know the truth about who she's married to. After that, we'll see, David nodded. I think that's the right call. But Raymond, you need to understand something. If he's in this much debt, if he's got loan sharks after him, he's dangerous. Desperate people do desperate things. I know. I'm assigning security to you, not negotiable. So that's how I ended up with Michael Torres following me everywhere. Discreetly, professionally, but always there. I met Sarah at the coffee shop 3 days after the letter was sent. She looked terrible, hadn't slept from the look of it, eyes red, hair not styled the way she usually wore it. She stood up when she saw me, hesitated, like she wasn't sure if I'd even want to hug her. I didn't hug her, not yet. I sat down across from her. Thank you for coming, Dad. I didn't respond, just waited. I don't know where to start. I don't even know how to begin apologizing for what happened. For what Mark said, for how I stood there and let it happen. Why did you? She looked down at her coffee cup. I don't know, I don't have a good answer. Mark was so angry, so insistent, and I went along with it. I've been going along with everything he says for so long now that I don't even know when I stopped thinking for myself. That's not good enough, Sarah. I know. Tears were streaming down her face now. I know it's not good enough. You're my father. You raised me. You sacrificed everything for me. And when you needed me most, I turned my back on you. There's no excuse for that. There's nothing I can say that makes it okay. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder, set it on the table between us. What's this? This is information about your husband. Information I think you need to see. Her hand trembled as she opened it. I watched her face as she read, watched the confusion turn to shock, turn to horror, turn to rage. He forged my signature 6 months ago, tried to take out a home equity loan on the house. The bank denied it because of the trust structure. I don't understand. Why would he need? What is all this debt? Gambling, Sarah. Your husband has a serious gambling problem, has for years, and he's been hiding it from you. She was shaking now, full body shaking. $200,000. How did I not know? How did I not see? Because he's good at hiding it. And because, I paused, choosing my words carefully, because somewhere along the way you stopped questioning him. You stopped being the strong, independent woman I raised and became whatever he needed you to be. She closed the folder, pushed it away, put her head in her hands and sobbed. I wanted to comfort her, wanted to reach across that table and hold her the way I did when she was little and had nightmares. But I couldn't, not yet. She needed to feel this. After a long time, she looked up. What are you going to do? That's not the right question, Sarah. The question is, what are you going to do? I don't know anything anymore. Let me tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to press charges, not yet. Despite everything your husband did to me, despite the fraud and the forgery and the contempt, I'm not going to send him to prison, because you're my daughter and I don't want to see you destroyed by this. Dad, but I'm also not going to let him continue using my property to hide his debts. The house is going to be sold, properly, legally. With full transparency, whatever equity exists will be divided according to the trust agreement. And you need to decide whether you're going to stay married to a man who forged your signature and gambled away your future. She nodded, wiping her tears. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. But Sarah, I want you to know something. No matter how angry I am, no matter how hurt I am by what you did, you're still my daughter. That doesn't change. But respect goes both ways. Love goes both ways, and trust has to be rebuilt. I know. There's a guest room at David Chen's estate. If you need a safe place to go while you figure things out, it's yours, no strings attached, no conditions, just a safe space for my daughter. She started crying again, reached across the table and grabbed my hand. I'm so sorry, Dad, I'm so sorry. I squeezed her hand, once, Then let go. I know you are. Now you need to show me through your actions, not just your words. I stood up to leave, stopped, turned back. Sarah, that girl I raised, the one who used to stand up for herself, who used to have dreams and goals and fire in her eyes. I miss her. I hope you can find her again. Sarah called me 2 days later. She'd confronted Mark with the evidence, with everything. He denied it at first, called it fake documents, conspiracy, accused me and David of fabricating everything, but she'd done her homework, called the credit card companies, talked to the bank, checked their joint accounts. Every single thing in that folder was verified. Mark had finally broken down and confessed. Yes, he had gambling debts. Yes, he'd tried to take out the loan. Yes, he'd forged her signature. But it wasn't his fault, he said. He had a problem, he needed help. He'd been under so much pressure. The same man who'd screamed at me to get out of his house was now crying and begging his wife for forgiveness. Sarah told me all this over the phone, her voice flat, emotionless, like she'd used up all her tears and had nothing left. What are you going to do? I asked. I asked him to leave. He's staying at a hotel. I need space to think. Good. That's good, Dad. There's something else. I was going through his desk, looking for more information about the debts, and I found something. What? Loan agreements from private lenders, the kind that charge 50% interest. They're using the house as collateral. My blood went cold. That's not possible. He can't use the house as collateral without my consent. That's what I thought too, but apparently he told them he had full ownership, showed them forged documents. Dad, these people. They're not legitimate businessmen. The letters they've sent him, the threats. If he doesn't pay, they're going to come after the house. They're going to come after us. This was worse than I thought, much worse. Send me everything. Every document, every letter, every piece of communication. Send it to Rebecca's office immediately. Dad, I'm scared. The first time since this whole nightmare began, I heard my daughter. Really heard her. Not the woman who'd stood behind her husband and told me to leave. But the little girl who used to run to me when she was frightened. Coming to get you. Pack a bag. You're not staying in that house tonight. Michael will be there in 20 minutes. Don't argue, just do what I'm telling you. Okay? 20 minutes later, Michael called me. I have her, sir, she's safe. An hour after that, Sarah was sitting in David's living room with me and Rebecca, spreading out all of Mark's hidden documents on the coffee table. Rebecca's expression grew darker with each page she reviewed. Mr. Carter, your son-in-law has gotten involved with some very dangerous people. These aren't regulated lenders. These are criminals who use legal paperwork to seem legitimate, but their enforcement methods are anything but legal. Can they actually claim the house? Not legally. The documents Mark showed them are fraudulent, but people like this don't always follow legal channels. They might try to intimidate, threaten, or worse. I need to contact the authorities about this immediately. David stood up. Already done. I have contacts in both the FBI's Financial Crimes Division and local law enforcement. They'll be here within the hour. And they were 2 FBI agents and a detective from the Financial Crimes Unit. They took statements from Sarah, reviewed all the evidence, copied everything. The lead FBI agent, a woman named Martinez, was blunt. Mrs. Brennan, your husband has defrauded multiple lenders and put you in serious danger. These loan sharks he's been dealing with, they've been linked to assault, arson, and in one case, a suspicious death. We need to act quickly. Sarah looked terrified. What do I do? For now, you stay somewhere safe, somewhere they can't find you. We're going to set up surveillance on your house and monitor for any contact from these individuals, and we're going to bring your husband in for questioning. He'll run, Sarah said quietly. If he knows you're coming for him, he'll run. Then we won't give him the chance to know. They arrested Mark the next morning. Early 6 a.m. raid at the hotel where he was staying. He didn't even have time to put his shoes on. I wasn't there, but Rebecca got the call. Mark had immediately lawyered up, refused to say anything without his attorney present, but the evidence was overwhelming. Fraud, forgery, making false statements to obtain credit. The list went on. What Mark didn't know was that the FBI had already been building a case against the loan sharks he'd been dealing with. His arrest gave them the leverage they needed. They offered him a deal, cooperate fully, testify against the lenders, and they'd recommend reduced charges. Mark took the deal. Of course he did. He was a coward at heart. Over the next week, I watched my son-in-law completely unravel. The FBI investigation revealed that he'd been living a double life for years. The gambling had started small, a few hundred here and there, but it had spiraled, and when he'd maxed out his credit cards and exhausted legitimate lending options, he'd turned to the kind of people you never want to owe money to. He'd been making payments by skimming from the joint accounts he shared with Sarah, taking money she thought was going to savings or retirement, She'd never checked, trusted him completely, and he'd betrayed that trust over and over again. The loan sharks, meanwhile, were arrested in a coordinated raid. Turned out Mark wasn't their only victim. They'd been running this scam across 3 states. Dozens of people had fallen into their trap. Mark's cooperation earned him a reduced sentence, but he was still going to prison, 2 years for fraud and forgery. His lawyer tried to argue for probation. The judge wasn't buying it. "Mr. Brennan," the judge said during sentencing, "you didn't just commit financial crimes. You betrayed your wife's trust, you forged her signature, and you endangered your family's safety by dealing with criminals. The court finds that imprisonment is necessary to reflect the seriousness of these offenses." Sarah was there for the sentencing. I sat next to her. She didn't cry, just sat there stone-faced as they led him away in handcuffs. Afterward, in the courthouse parking lot, she finally spoke. "I wasted 5 years of my life with him." "You didn't waste them, honey. You learned from them. That's different." "I don't know how to come back from this, Dad. I don't know how to rebuild my life. One day at a time, that's how, the same way I did when your mother left, the same way we've always done things, together." She looked at me, really looked at me. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not, but you're getting it anyway, because that's what family does. We forgive, we rebuild, we move forward." The house had to be sold. There was no way around it. Between Mark's debts, the legal fees, and the cloud hanging over the property, it was the only solution that made sense. Rebecca handled everything: professional appraisal, market listing, open houses. The real estate market was good, and within 3 weeks we had multiple offers. Sarah insisted on being part of the process. She wanted to face it head-on, no more hiding, no more letting other people make decisions for her. We accepted an offer from a young couple expecting their first child. They fell in love with the neighborhood, the school district, the backyard where they could imagine their kid playing. The irony wasn't lost on me. A new family, a fresh start. Everything Sarah and Mark could have had if he hadn't destroyed it all. The closing happened on a Thursday morning. Sarah and I sat side by side in the attorney's office while Rebecca walked us through the paperwork. The final numbers showed that after all debts were paid, after legal fees, after everything, there was still equity left. Per the trust agreement, I received 51%. Sarah received 49%. My portion came to about $140,000. Sarah's was about $135,000. Neither of us had expected anything. We'd both assumed the debts would eat up everything. But the house had appreciated significantly over the past 5 years, and the trust structure had protected it from Mark's creditors. As we walked out of that attorney's office, checks in hand, Sarah stopped me on the sidewalk. "Dad, I want you to have my portion too." "Absolutely not. Please, after everything I did to you, after how I treated you." "Sarah, stop. That money is yours. It's your fresh start. You're going to take it and rebuild your life. Find a new place to live. Maybe go back to school like you always talked about. Whatever you want to do, but you're going to do it independently, not relying on me, not relying on anyone, standing on your own 2 feet. But you lost everything in the fire you need." "I'm fine. David has given me a job." Her eyes widened. "A job, consultant for his company. He says he needs someone with real-world experience and practical wisdom. Probably just charity, but it's good charity. Pays well, comes with benefits, and it makes me feel useful again." That wasn't entirely true. David's offer was genuine. He'd asked me to review operational efficiency at some of his smaller warehouses. Said my years of factory and logistics experience were exactly what he needed. But even if it had been charity, I would have taken it, because it gave me purpose again. "So take your money," I continued. "Build your life. And when you're ready, when you've figured out who you are again, we'll talk about the future, our future as a family." She hugged me, right there on the sidewalk, held on tight like she used to when she was little and didn't want me to leave for work. "I'm going to make you proud, Dad, I promise." "You already do, honey. Every day you wake up and choose to be better than you were yesterday, you make me proud." But Mark wasn't done yet. Even from prison, he tried one last desperate move. 6 weeks after he'd been sentenced, Rebecca got a call from his attorney. Mark was contesting the house sale, claiming he'd never properly consented, arguing that the trust structure was invalid, demanding that the sale be reversed and his portion of the equity be given directly to him. It was nonsense. Legal garbage thrown at the wall, hoping something would stick, but it still had to be addressed. We ended up in court. Again, civil court this time. Mark appeared via video link from prison wearing an orange jumpsuit. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The arrogance was gone, replaced by desperation. His attorney made his arguments. They were weak, full of technical language that meant nothing. Rebecca dismantled them point by point. She presented the original trust documents. Mark's signatures, Sarah's signatures, my signatures, every single piece of paperwork properly filed. Properly notarized, properly executed, she presented the timeline of events. The forgery, the fraud, the gambling debts, Mark's own plea agreement where he'd admitted to everything. The judge listened patiently. Then he looked at Mark on the video screen. Mr. Brennan, I've reviewed all the evidence and documentation. The trust structure was legitimate. The sale was legitimate. Your signatures were obtained legally and with full disclosure. Fact that you chose not to read what you signed is not grounds for appeal. But Your Honor, furthermore, the judge continued, cutting him off, this court notes that you attempted to defraud lenders using this very property. You forged your wife's signature. You put your family in danger. And now you have the audacity to come before this court and claim you're the victim, that you deserve compensation. I just want what's fair. What's fair, Mr. Brennan, is that you're serving time for your crimes. What's fair is that the people you hurt, your wife, your father-in-law, have recovered some measure of their losses. This motion is denied. Decisively and finally, do not bring this matter before this court again. Video link cut off. Mark was gone. The judge looked at me and Sarah, his expression softened. Mr. Carter, Mrs. Brennan, I'm sorry for what you've been through. The court hopes you can both find peace and rebuild your lives. This matter is closed. We walked out of that courtroom together. Sarah was smiling, actually smiling. It's really over. Yes, honey, it's really over. What now? Now we live, really live, not surviving, not just getting by, living. Sarah found an apartment 3 weeks later, small but nice, 1 bedroom in a decent neighborhood. She'd enrolled in online classes to finish her master's degree, something she'd started years ago but abandoned when Mark convinced her she didn't need it. I helped her move in, carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs and felt every single one of my 66 years. But it felt good, felt right. This was what fathers do. They help their children start over. She'd bought furniture from thrift stores and estate sales, nothing fancy, but she'd chosen every piece herself, made decisions based on what she liked, not what someone else told her she should like. The day she finished setting up her apartment, she made dinner, just the 2 of us. Spaghetti and meatballs, my recipe, the one I'd made for her every Sunday when she was growing up. We sat at her little kitchen table, eating and talking, really talking. For the first time in years, maybe the first time ever, she told me the truth about her marriage. How controlling Mark had been, how isolated she'd felt, how she'd lost herself trying to be whatever he wanted her to be. Angry at him, she said. Of course I'm angry at him, but I'm more angry at myself, for allowing it, for not seeing it, for not being stronger. You're being strong now, that's what matters. I keep thinking about that day when you showed up at the house. How I stood there and let him throw you out. I replay it in my head constantly and I can't believe that was me. You were scared. People do things they regret when they're scared. That's not an excuse. No, it's not, but it's an explanation. And sometimes understanding why we did something is the first step to forgiving ourselves. She wiped her eyes. Do you forgive me, Dad? Really? I reached across the table and took her hand. Yes, Sarah, I forgive you, but more importantly, you need to forgive yourself, because holding on to that guilt, it's just another way of letting Mark control your life. She nodded, squeezed my hand. Tell me about your job. How's it going with David's company? So I told her about the warehouse assessments, about the recommendations I'd made, about how David actually listened to my suggestions and implemented several of them, about how good it felt to be useful again, to have purpose, and you're living at his estate still, for now, but I'm looking at apartments too, something small, something simple, I don't need much. Dad, with the money from the house sale, you could buy something nice, a condo, something with a doorman and security. I don't need a doorman, honey. I just need a safe place with good light and maybe a small balcony where I can drink my morning coffee. She smiled. That sounds perfect for you. After dinner, we sat on her small balcony. She'd bought 2 folding chairs. We drank coffee and watched the sunset. You know what I realized? She said. I'm 32 years old and this is the first place that's truly mine, not shared with a boyfriend or husband, not decorated according to someone else's taste, just mine. And it feels good, scary, but good. That's called freedom, honey. Get used to it. A few weeks later, she called me excited. She'd been contacted by her old company. They'd heard she was available again and wanted to know if she'd be interested in coming back. Better position, better pay. They remembered her work and valued her. She took the job, thrived at it. Within 3 months, she'd been promoted. I watched my daughter transform back into the person she was always meant to be, strong, independent, confident, the girl I'd raised, and my grandson. My 8-year-old grandson who I'd barely seen in the past 2 years because Mark had always found excuses why they were too busy. Sarah brought him to visit me at David's estate. The boy's eyes went wide when he saw the property. "Grandpa, you live in a mansion? I'm just staying here temporarily, buddy. It's so cool. Can we explore?" David heard us and came out. "Of course you can explore, and I think there might be a basketball hoop in the back if you're interested." My grandson ran off with David's teenage son, and suddenly I had this moment. This perfect moment, watching my grandson laugh and play, seeing Sarah smile, really smile, having found a true friend in David. Everything I'd lost in that fire, maybe it needed to burn. Maybe I needed to lose everything to find out what truly mattered. 6 months after that terrible day on the curb, I finally found my own apartment. Small one-bedroom place with good light and a balcony overlooking a park. Perfect. Sarah helped me move in. We'd established a routine by then. Sunday dinners together. Sometimes at her place, sometimes at mine. Sometimes she'd bring my grandson, sometimes just the two of us. The relationship wasn't perfect. We were both still healing, still learning how to be family again, but we were trying, really trying. One Sunday evening, after dinner at my new place, Sarah stayed behind to help me hang some pictures. Old photos I'd managed to recover from the fire. They were damaged, smoke-stained, but I'd had them professionally restored. She stopped in front of one picture. Her as a little girl, maybe 5 years old, sitting on my shoulders at the zoo, both of us laughing at something. "I don't remember this day," she said softly. "You were obsessed with giraffes, made me take you to see them 3 times. By the 3rd visit you'd named every single one." She laughed, then stopped. Her expression changed. "Dad, can I ask you something? Anything? That day, when Mark threw you out, when I stood there and said nothing, were you surprised?" I thought about lying, about saying something comforting, but we'd promised each other honesty, complete honesty. "Yes," I said. "I was surprised and devastated. I thought I'd raised you to be stronger than that, to stand up for what's right even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. So yes, I was surprised and hurt, more hurt than I've ever been in my life." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Good, I'm glad you were honest, because I need to hear that. I need to know how badly I hurt you, not so I can punish myself, but so I never forget, so I never become that person again." "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you're here, because you're doing the work, because every day you wake up and choose to be better." That's not something the old Sarah would have done. The Sarah who stood behind Mark and said nothing. She would have made excuses, blamed others, avoided responsibility. But you're not her anymore. She hugged me, held on tight. "I love you, Dad. I'm sorry it took me so long to remember how to show it." "I love you too, honey. Always have, always will." A year later, I was sitting on my balcony drinking my morning coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Carter, this is Officer Jenkins from the State Corrections Facility. I'm calling about Mark Brennan." My heart sank. "Is everything all right?" "Yes, sir, nothing to worry about. Mr. Brennan is scheduled for release in 3 weeks. As a victim in his case, you're entitled to be notified. I'm also calling to inform you that he's requested to have a message passed to you." "What message?" "He's written a letter. We've screened it. There's nothing threatening. Would you like us to send it to you?" I thought about it. "Yes, send it." The letter arrived 2 days later. I held it for a long time before opening it. Not scared, just curious. Finally, I opened it. "Raymond, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. What I did to you, to Sarah, to our family, there's no excuse for it. I've had a lot of time to think, a lot of time to face what I became. The gambling wasn't your fault. The debts weren't your fault. The choices I made, they were mine alone. You tried to help us. You gave us a home. You were generous and kind. And I repaid that by treating you like garbage, by screaming at you when you were at your lowest point, by trying to steal from you. I don't know if this means anything, but I'm sorry, truly sorry. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not asking for a response or reconciliation or another chance. I just wanted you to know that I recognize what I did, and I'm working every day to become someone different, someone better. Sarah deserves better than who I was. You deserved better. I hope you're both okay. I hope you're both happy. Mark." I read it 3 times, looked for manipulation, looked for the angle, but I couldn't find one. Maybe he'd changed. Maybe prison had given him perspective, or maybe this was just another performance. I didn't care either way. I folded the letter carefully, put it in a drawer, and went about my day. That evening I called Sarah. Mark's getting out in 3 weeks. Then, how do you feel about that? Nothing, I feel nothing. He's not part of my life anymore, hasn't been for a year. He can do whatever he wants when he gets out as long as it doesn't involve you or my grandson. He sent me a letter too, apologizing, asking if we could talk when he's released. What did you say? I haven't responded. I don't know if I will. Part of me wants closure, wants to hear him apologize in person, but another part of me thinks I don't need that. I've already moved on. Then move on. You don't owe him closure. You don't owe him anything. You're right, thanks, Dad. 3 weeks later, Mark was released. I heard about it through Rebecca. He'd contacted his attorney asking about the possibility of seeing Sarah. Rebecca had politely but firmly told him that Sarah had no interest in contact and he should respect that. He'd apparently accepted it, moved to another state, found work, stayed away, and that was the end of Mark Brennan's role in our lives. Sometimes people ask me how I survived it all, the fire, the rejection, the betrayal, how I came back from sitting on that curb with nothing but a bag and a phone, and I tell them the truth. I survived because of one phone call, because years ago I'd helped someone when he needed help, not expecting anything in return, just because it was the right thing to do. David Chen saved me, but in a way, I'd saved myself years earlier by being the kind of person who helps others. That's the lesson in all of this. Not that you should help people because you might need them someday, but that kindness creates ripples, that treating people with dignity and respect and compassion, it matters, sometimes immediately, sometimes years later, but it always matters. My daughter learned that lesson the hard way. She learned that choosing a marriage over family, comfort over character, silence over standing up for what's right, those choices have consequences. But she also learned that people can change, that you can mess up badly and still find your way back, that forgiveness is possible, even when it seems impossible. Today, I'm 67 years old. I have a job I enjoy, an apartment I love, a friendship with David that's grown deeper over the past year, and a relationship with my daughter that's stronger than it's ever been. Not perfect, still healing, but real, honest, built on truth instead of obligation. My grandson comes to visit every other weekend. We go to the park, play basketball, talk about school and friends and dinosaurs and whatever else is on his 8-year-old mind. Sarah is thriving at her job, dating someone new, a kind man who treats her with respect. She's cautious this time, taking it slow, making sure she doesn't lose herself again. And me, I'm learning that home isn't a place. It's not a building or an apartment or a house you own. Home is who stands with you when you have nothing, who shows up when you need them, who lifts you up when you're at your lowest. David gave me a home when I had none, not just a room in his estate, but a place to belong, to matter, to be seen as valuable. And Sarah, she found her way back home, back to the family she'd lost, back to herself. That day on the curb when my son-in-law screamed at me to get out, when my daughter told me I was on my own. I thought it was the end of everything. I was wrong. It was the beginning, the end of living small, of accepting disrespect, of believing I had to settle for scraps of affection from people who should have loved me unconditionally, and the beginning of understanding my worth, of surrounding myself with people who saw my value, of rebuilding a life based on dignity and mutual respect. Was it painful? God, yes. More painful than anything I'd ever experienced. Was it worth it? Every single second. Because now I know who I am, what I'm worth, and what I will and won't accept from the people in my life. And my daughter knows who she is too, not Mark's wife, not someone who stands silent while her father is humiliated, but a strong, independent woman who makes her own choices and lives with integrity. That's worth more than any house, more than any amount of money, more than comfort or convenience or keeping the peace. That's worth everything. 2 years after that terrible day, I got a call from Sarah. Dad, I need to tell you something. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, but I'm engaged. My heart did something complicated. Happy for her, worried for her, protective of her. Tell me about him. His name is James. He's a teacher, 5th grade. I met him at my nephew's school. He's kind, Dad, really kind, patient. He makes me laugh. And when I told him about everything that happened with Mark, about how I treated you, he didn't judge me. He just said everyone deserves a second chance to get it right. I'd like to meet him. I was hoping you'd say that. How about dinner next Sunday at my place? That Sunday I met James. Quiet man, thoughtful, the kind of person who listens more than he talks. He shook my hand with a firm grip and looked me in the eye. Mr. Carter, Sarah has told me so much about you, about everything you've done for her, about how you've supported her through the hardest time of her life. I want you to know that I see who she is now, and I respect the journey she took to get here. And I promise you I will treat her with the kindness and respect she deserves. And if you don't, I asked, not threatening, just asking, he smiled. Then I hope you'll call me out on it. Sarah needs people in her life who will be honest with her, who will tell her the truth even when it's hard. I hope I can be one of those people, but if I'm not, I trust you will be. I liked him, despite my reservations, despite my protective instincts screaming at me to be cautious. I liked him. They got married a year later, small ceremony. Just family and close friends. I walked her down the aisle again, but this time felt different. This time I wasn't giving her away. I was watching her choose for herself, choose wisely, choose a partner, not a controller. At the reception, she pulled me aside. Thank you, Dad. For what? For not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself, even when I didn't deserve your faith. You didn't give up. That's what parents do, honey. We believe in our children even when they can't believe in themselves. I'm going to do better this time. I'm going to be the person you raised me to be. You already are. As I watched her dance with her new husband, watched my grandson playing with the other kids, watched David and Linda across the room smiling and talking with the other guests, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Complete, total peace. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. Life is never perfect. But because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. You can lose everything, your home, your possessions, your sense of security, and still have everything that truly matters. Family that chooses you back, friends who show up when you need them, self-respect that no one can take away, the knowledge that you've lived with integrity even when it cost you everything. That's real wealth, that's real security, that's real home. And nobody, not a son-in-law who screams at you, not a daughter who temporarily forgets who you are, not a fire that burns down your apartment, not losing everything you own, nobody can take that away from you. That day on the curb, I thought my life was over. I was wrong. It was just beginning. My name is Raymond Carter. I'm 68 years old now, and I'm home. If this story resonates with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and drop in the comment what you would have done if you were to be in my shoes.